For approximately 300 years, from 618 to 907, one empire sat at the absolute pinnacle of human civilization, not merely in military strength or economic production, but in science, art, law, trade, and culture, creating a capital city so vast that every other urban center on Earth appeared as a village by comparison, and establishing a legal code so sophisticated that neighboring kingdoms adopted it without modification. This was the Tang Dynasty, China's golden age, and the period when a single Chinese empire controlled more wealth, commanded more territory, and produced more cultural achievements than any other state on the planet, sitting at the crossroads of the entire Silk Road network, which meant that merchants from Persia and Arabia, monks from India, diplomats from Byzantium, and students from Japan and Korea traveled to a cosmopolitan capital where multiple religions coexisted, foreign languages filled the marketplaces, and the most advanced government bureaucracy ever created managed an empire of tens of millions through a system based on merit rather than birth. China before Tang experienced 400 years of chaos after the Han Dynasty collapsed in 220 AD, as warlords fought endless wars and invasions devastated populations. In 581, General Yang Jian founded the Sui dynasty and reunified China, but his son Emperor Yang destroyed everything through megalomania, forcing 6 million peasants to build the Grand Canal at horrific cost, with hundreds of thousands dying during construction, launching 3 failed campaigns against Korea that killed 300,000 soldiers, and taxing the people into poverty until rebellions erupted by 617. Li Yuan, an aristocrat with connections to the Sui royal house, raised forces in 617, captured Chang'an, and declared himself first emperor of the Tang Dynasty in 618, with the throne name Gaozu. But the real military genius was his second son, Li Shimin, who at 18 led the campaigns that crushed Tang's rivals and unified China by 628. Li Shimin was brilliant and aware he had contributed more to building Tang than his older brother Li Jiancheng, the crown prince, creating unbearable tension as their factions maneuvered for power. On July 2, 626, at the Xuanwu Gate of the Imperial Palace, Li Shimin and his allies ambushed Li Jiancheng and younger brother Li Yuanji, with Li Shimin personally shooting his older brother with arrows before his supporters killed Li Yuanji. Li Shimin then informed his father, Emperor Gaozu, of what happened, leaving Gaozu with no surviving sons except Li Shimin and no choice but to abdicate. Li Shimin became Emperor Taizong on September 4, 626, giving Tang one of the most capable rulers in Chinese history. Emperor Taizong ruled from 626 to 649 in the reign of Zhenguan, held up as the gold standard of governance in Chinese history. He created the Tang Code, one of the most comprehensive legal documents in the ancient world that Korea, Japan, and Vietnam adopted into their own systems. He strengthened the civil service examination system, awarding positions based on merit through testing rather than birth. He destroyed the Eastern Turkic Khaganate in 630, and the Turkic leaders honored him as Tengri Khagan, meaning Heavenly Khan. Most remarkably, Taizong cultivated honest advisors who criticized him directly, with Wei Zheng, who had supported his brother being promoted to senior minister and spending his career arguing with the emperor. When Wei Zheng died in 643, Taizong said that with a bronze mirror, you can adjust your appearance. With history as a mirror, you understand rise and fall. And with a person as a mirror, you see your own errors. And Wei Zheng had been that mirror. Taizong died on July 10, 649, at 51, from mercury poisoning from Taoist elixirs, seeking immortality. Chang'an at modern Xi'an was at its height during the Tang period, almost certainly the largest and most cosmopolitan city on Earth, covering 84 square kilometers and laid out in a precise grid of 108 enclosed wards, each with walls and gates that closed at night, with the Imperial Palace complex occupying the northern section. Population estimates range from 600,000 to over 1 million people within the city proper, with another million in the surrounding region. And to place these numbers in perspective, medieval London at the same time had perhaps 15,000 inhabitants, Paris maybe 30,000, and Constantinople, which was the largest city in the Western world, had around 300,000 to 400,000 people, meaning Chang'an was in an entirely different category of urban development, with no real equivalent anywhere else on the planet. As the western terminus of the Silk Road, Chang'an's West Market was filled with Sogdian merchants from Central Asia, Persian traders, Arab merchants, Indian Buddhist monks, Byzantine craftsmen, and Korean and Japanese students, all conducting business in the same streets, creating a cosmopolitan environment where goods, including Syrian glassware, Southeast Asian spices, Indian gemstones, and Central Asian horses, flowed in, while Chinese silk, porcelain, tea, and paper flowed out to markets across Asia and beyond. Buddhist monasteries, Taoist temples, Zoroastrian fire temples, Nestorian Christian churches, and after the mid-7th century, early mosques all functioned openly within the city, allowing multiple religious traditions to coexist without the religious persecution that characterized many other civilizations during the same period. Central Asian influence permeated Tang elite society as the pipa, a lute-like instrument from Central Asia, became one of Tang's defining musical instruments at court. Polo, imported from Persia, became the preferred sport of the Tang aristocracy, and Sogdian dancers performing whirling dances became fashionable entertainment at imperial banquets. Wu Zetian was born in 624 and entered Emperor Taizong's palace at age 14 as one of dozens of concubines, occupying a low position in the palace hierarchy and facing the prospect that when Taizong died, she would be required by tradition to shave her head and retire to a Buddhist convent for the rest of her life. When Taizong died in 649, Wu Zetian did enter the convent as required, but Emperor Gaozong, who was Taizong's son, had been infatuated with her during his father's reign and encountered her during a visit to the convent, subsequently bringing her back to the palace as his own consort in a move that violated traditional propriety but demonstrated Gaozong's determination to have her. From that point, Wu Zetian's rise was methodical and ruthless as she maneuvered against Emperor Gaozong's existing Empress Wang and against a rival consort named Consort Xiao, using palace intrigue and accusations to discredit both women until by 655 she had been elevated to Empress Consort herself, while Empress Wang and Consort Xiao were imprisoned and then executed in circumstances that historical sources describe as brutal, with both women having their hands and feet cut off and being thrown into wine vats to die slowly. Through the 660s and 670s, as Emperor Gaozong's health deteriorated from what modern historians speculate may have been stroke-related conditions, causing severe headaches and declining capacity, Wu Zetian assumed increasingly direct control over government administration, with court documents beginning to refer to her and Gaozong jointly as the two sages, indicating that she was functionally running the empire even before Gaozong's death. When Emperor Gaozong died on December 27, 683, Wu Zetian became regent for her son, Emperor Zhongzong. But within 2 months, she removed him from the throne and replaced him with another son, Emperor Ruizong, who was more compliant to her authority, demonstrating that she controlled the emperor's position itself. Then in 690, Wu Zetian stopped maintaining the fiction of ruling through puppet emperors and formally declared herself emperor, not empress regent or empress consort, but emperor. taking the title Huangdi, which in Chinese political theory could only be held by a man who possessed the mandate of heaven, making her the only woman in Chinese history to ever claim supreme imperial authority in her own name. As emperor, Wu Zetian expanded the civil service examination system aggressively and deliberately, creating new examination categories and personally presiding over some examinations as a way to undercut the old aristocratic families who resented her and to replace them with officials who owed their careers directly to her patronage. She used Buddhism as a political tool by circulating texts that identified her as a reincarnated bodhisattva sent to rule, patronizing temples generously, including the Longmen Grottos near Luoyang, which are among the great monuments of Tang Buddhist art, and maintaining a network of informants and secret police that made open opposition to her rule extremely dangerous. Multiple members of the Li family, who were the original Tang imperial lineage, were killed during her reign as she eliminated potential rivals. In 705, when Wu Zetian was 81 years old and seriously ill, a group of senior court officials staged a palace coup that forced her to abdicate and restored the Tang Dynasty under her son, Emperor Zhongzong, and she died later that year on December 16, 705. After Wu Zetian's abdication, Tang experienced instability until Emperor Xuanzong took the throne in 712 for a 44-year reign. The first half, from 713 to 741, the Kai-Yuan era, represents Tang's absolute zenith. The census of 742 recorded 50 to 53 million people. Tax revenues were the highest in Tang history, and China was by any standard the most powerful state on earth. Li Bai and Du Fu, China's greatest poets, both wrote during Xuanzong's reign, with Li Bai creating romantic poetry, celebrating wine and nature, while Du Fu wrote with compassion about war and poverty. And these two men met and drank together in one of literature's great moments. Xuanzong himself founded the Pear Garden Academy for musicians that trained thousands of artists, and the name is still used today by Chinese opera performers, even though the institution disappeared over 1,000 years ago. But around 740, Xuanzong's focus shifted dramatically as he became intensely infatuated with a young woman named Yang Yuhuan, known to history as Yang Guifei, or Precious Consort Yang, who had originally been the consort of one of Xuanzong's sons, but whom Xuanzong had transferred into a religious order through a transparent legal fiction before taking her as his own imperial consort, a move that violated propriety but demonstrated the aging emperor's obsession. Yang Guifei's family rose rapidly to power, with her cousin Yang Guozhong appointed chief minister in 752, despite being manifestly incompetent for the position. And as the court became focused on luxury and factional maneuvering, with Yang family members securing positions throughout the bureaucracy, competent officials were pushed aside and political management deteriorated. While out on the frontiers, a much more dangerous problem was developing that nobody at court seemed to notice or care about. The Tang government had increasingly relied on semi-autonomous military governors called jidushi to manage frontier defense. And these governors controlled their own armies, their own tax collection, and their own appointments, creating regional power centers that by the 700s commanded forces larger than what the central government could field directly. One of these governors, a man named An Lushan, who was the son of a Sogdian father and Turkic mother, and who commanded 3 frontier armies simultaneously, had charmed Xuanzong to an almost absurd degree. An Lushan was enormously fat, which apparently did nothing to diminish his effectiveness as a soldier or his talent for political maneuvering at court, and he had been ceremonially adopted by Yang Guifei as her son in an absurd court ritual where this middle-aged military commander played the role of Yang Guifei's dutiful child. He performed comic dances at court and played the fool, making Xuanzong laugh while simultaneously building one of the largest private armies in the empire and preparing for rebellion. On December 16, 755, An Lushan marched south from his base at Fanyang with approximately 160,000 troops, and the Tang central government was caught completely unprepared as its own military forces had atrophied during the prosperous Kaiyuan era, leaving almost nothing standing between An Lushan's army and the capitals. Luoyang, the eastern capital, fell in January 756, and Chang'an fell in July 756, forcing 71-year-old Emperor Xuanzong to flee the capital in the middle of the night with a small escort heading southwest towards Sichuan. At a relay station called Mawei on July 15, 756, the Imperial Guard escorting Xuanzong mutinied and killed Yang Guozhong, the chief minister, blaming him for the catastrophe. Then the officers approached Xuanzong himself with a demand. Yang Guifei had to die. The logic, brutal as it was, made a kind of sense to the soldiers. Yang Guozhong was her cousin. The Yang family's political influence had contributed to the mismanagement that allowed this disaster, and the soldiers would not move on until she was dead. Xuanzong tried to argue, but he was 71 years old, standing on the side of a road with his empire collapsing around him and his guards telling him to give the order. He gave it. Yang Guifei was led away by the chief eunuch official Gao Lishi to a pear tree in a courtyard beside the relay station and strangled, dying at approximately 38 years old. Xuanzong never saw Chang'an again. His son had already declared himself Emperor Suzong in the north to continue the dynasty and allowed the old emperor to return to the capital in 757 only as a retired figure with no real power, leaving Xuanzong to live out his final years largely in isolation, reportedly weeping over Yang Guifei for the rest of his life until his death on May 3, 762. The An Lushan rebellion lasted from 755 to 763, requiring Tang forces supplemented heavily by Uyghur cavalry mercenaries who extracted enormous payments for their assistance to eventually retake both capitals and wear down the rebel coalition. And while An Lushan himself was assassinated by his own son in 757, the rebellion continued under his successors until finally collapsing in 763. The human cost was catastrophic beyond almost any other conflict in history, as a census taken in 754 before the rebellion recorded a registered population of roughly 52 million people, while the census of 764, taken after it ended, showed only about 17 million registered. And while some of that drop reflects population displacement and administrative collapse rather than pure mortality, historians using modern demographic analysis still estimate total deaths from battle, famine, disease, and displacement in the range of 13 to 36 million people, making the An Lushan rebellion one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, even though it receives far less attention in Western historical education than it deserves. Tang survived the rebellion, but the dynasty that emerged from 763 was fundamentally different from the Tang that had entered 755, as central government authority over the provinces was permanently weakened, and the Jiedushi military governors had demonstrated that they could field armies that made the court irrelevant, with many governors who had fought for Tang simply staying in their territories as autonomous rulers, paying nominal tribute while functioning as independent warlords, meaning the dynasty survived in name, but its real power had not. The final 150 years of Tang history followed a depressing pattern of weak emperors, powerful eunuchs who accumulated institutional control, and effectively selected emperors, factional politics that paralyzed the bureaucracy, rebellious governors in the provinces, and chronic revenue shortfalls that the government could barely manage. By the 800s, palace eunuchs were not just managing palace affairs, but commanding the imperial guard armies and placing emperors on the throne, with multiple emperors being installed or removed by eunuch factions when they became inconvenient, making the Son of Heaven often a prisoner in his own palace with less real authority than the eunuchs who theoretically served him. The Jiedushi military governors in the provinces functioned as independent warlords who paid nominal tribute to the court but ruled their territories as autonomous kingdoms that the central government could not control even if it wanted to. The salt monopoly, one of the government's main revenue sources, became plagued by large-scale black market smuggling networks that the government could not suppress. And one of the leaders of these networks, Huang Chao, would eventually become the most dangerous man in China. The final catastrophe came from Huang Chao, a failed examination candidate who by the 870s ran salt smuggling operations with a private army. In 874, he joined a peasant uprising, and when the original leader died in 878, he took command and led his army across China, massacring tens of thousands in Guangzhou in 878, then capturing Chang'an in 881, where he declared himself emperor. Tang forces with Shatuo Turkic cavalry counterattacked and drove him from the capital by 883, and he was defeated and killed in 884. Chang'an never recovered, as the city that had been the wonder of the world was gutted and would never reach its former glory. The Tang that emerged was barely a dynasty, as real power belonged to warlords, including Zhu Wen, who had defected from Huang Chao's side in 882. By the early 900s, he was the strongest man in China, and in 904, he killed over 300 palace eunuchs in a single night, then had Emperor Zhaozong murdered and replaced with 13-year-old Emperor Ai. In 907, Zhu Wen forced Emperor Ai to abdicate, ending Tang's 289-year reign as he declared his later Liang Dynasty. Emperor Ai was poisoned in 908 at age 17, ending the dynasty that began with Li Shimin killing his brothers with a boy emperor murdered by the warlord, who took everything. The Tang Dynasty's legacy extends across East Asia, as Japan's Nara period recreated Tang civilization with Nara modeled on Chang'an's grid and government reorganized along Tang lines. Korea adopted Tang administrative models, and the Tang Code became the template for Japan's Taiho Code of 701 and Vietnam's legal traditions. Tang established classical Chinese poetry with Li Bai, Du Fu, Wang Wei, and Bai Juyi, creating works still memorized today, and developed block printing with the Diamond Sutra, printed in 868. Perhaps most remarkably in Chinese communities worldwide today, millions identify themselves as Tangren, meaning Tang people, and Chinatowns are called Tangrenji, meaning streets of the Tang people, demonstrating that a dynasty that ended in 907 is still embedded in identity over 1100 years later. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more history content covering wars, revolutions, and events that shaped the modern world.